February 1854, the North Atlantic. A British merchant ship was sailing through calm waters when the lookout spotted something on the horizon. A vessel drifting slowly, no sail set, no movement on deck. As they approached, the captain raised his telescope. What he saw made his blood run cold. The deck was covered with bodies, dozens of them, lying in grotesque positions. Some slumped against the mast, others sprawled across the wooden planks. But here's what made it truly horrifying. They weren't fresh corpses. They were skeletons, bare bones picked clean, clothing rotting off their frames. This wasn't a recent tragedy. This ship had been drifting for months, maybe years. A floating graveyard, sailing itself across the ocean. The crew was dead, every single one of them. But the ship sailed on. This is the story of one of the most disturbing maritime discoveries in history. A ghost ship that still haunts sailors to this day. The year was 1854, the height of the age of sail. Merchant ships crossed the Atlantic regularly, carrying cargo between Europe and the Americas. It was dangerous work. Storms could sink a ship in minutes. Disease could wipe out a crew in days. But what the crew of the British merchant vessel Marathon encountered that February morning was unlike anything in maritime history. Captain James Baker had been sailing for 20 years. He'd seen shipwrecks. He'd seen bodies floating in the water after disasters. He'd even seen ships abandoned during emergencies. But he'd never seen anything like this. The Marathon was 3 weeks out of Liverpool, bound for Boston with a cargo of textiles. The weather had been fair, the crossing uneventful. They were making good time. At approximately 10 a.m., the lookout called down from the crow's nest. "Ship ahead! Dead in the water!" Captain Baker came on deck. In the distance, perhaps 2 miles away, he could see a vessel, a schooner, 2 masts. But she wasn't moving properly. She was drifting, turning slowly in the current. "Any distress signals?" Baker asked. "None, sir. No flags. No movement I can see." Baker studied the ship through his telescope. The sails were furled, but poorly. Ropes hung loose. The ship looked abandoned. "Could be salvage," his first mate suggested. Under maritime law, an abandoned ship could be claimed by whoever found it. The ship and cargo would be sold, and the finders would receive a substantial reward. "We'll investigate," Baker decided. "Prepare a boarding party." As the Marathon drew closer, details became visible. The mystery ship was weathered, paint faded and peeling. "Rigging damaged." She looked like she'd been through hell. But what caught everyone's attention was the deck. There were shapes, dark shapes lying motionless. Then they realized they were bodies. "Dear God," the first mate whispered. Captain Baker counted at least 12 visible from their position, not moving, not responding to the Marathon's approach. "Could be plague," someone suggested. But Baker was already committed. If there were survivors, they needed help. "Lower a boat," he ordered. 6 men, volunteers only. "Cover your faces." Baker himself led the boarding party. His first mate and 4 sailors volunteered. They rowed the short distance in tense silence. As they pulled alongside, the smell hit them. Death, decay, salt water, and something else. Something sweet and rotten. The ship's name was barely visible on her stern. Resolute, no port of registry. "Resolute!" Baker called out. "Anyone aboard?" Silence, just creaking wood and waves. They secured their boat and climbed aboard. The deck was slippery, covered in grime and bird droppings, and bodies. Baker approached the nearest corpse. His heart pounded. The body wasn't fresh. It was skeletal, flesh eaten away by seabirds, clothing rotted, bones protruding through torn fabric. "They've been dead for months," the first mate said. Baker moved to the next body. Same condition. Then the next. All the same. "Count them," Baker ordered, "and check below deck." As his men spread out, Baker examined the ship itself. The wheel was lashed in place. Someone had tied it to maintain course. But the course was meaningless now. The ship had been drifting for God knows how long. The masts were intact. The sails were furled but damaged by weather. This ship hadn't sunk. hadn't capsized, hadn't burned. Something else had killed the crew. 14 on deck, sir, a sailor called out. All dead. Been dead a long time. Baker moved to the hatch leading below. He hesitated. Whatever killed these men might still be down there. Disease, toxic fumes, pirates hiding. He drew his pistol and descended. The smell was worse below. Confined, concentrated, the stench of death trapped in enclosed spaces. His eyes adjusted to the dim light. The cargo hold was full, barrels, crates, all secured properly. Whatever happened, it happened after the cargo was loaded. He moved through the ship. The galley, empty plates on the table, food long since rotted to nothing. The crew had been eating when something happened. The crew quarters, more bodies lying in bunks, slumped in corners. 15 more, bringing the total to 29. Baker's stomach turned. An entire crew dead. He found the captain's cabin. The door was open. Inside, a skeleton sat at the desk, still wearing the remnants of a captain's coat. A logbook lay open before him. Baker carefully picked up the log. The pages were water-damaged, mildewed but readable. The last entry was dated September 14, 1853, 5 months ago. Baker read the final entry. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. The sickness has taken everyone. I'm the last. Can barely hold the pen. God have mercy on our souls. The sickness. Baker's blood ran cold. He dropped the log and backed out of the cabin. Everyone back to the boat now. His men heard the urgency in his voice. They scrambled back topside. What is it? The first mate asked. Disease. Plague of some kind. We need to leave now. They climbed down to their boat and rowed back to the Marathon as fast as they could. Captain Baker stood on his own deck, staring at the Resolute. A ship full of dead men, still sailing, still drifting. Going nowhere, forever. What do we do, sir? His first mate asked. Baker was quiet for a long moment. By rights, they should claim salvage. Tow the ship to port. Collect the reward. But the disease? Whatever killed those men might still be aboard. In the cargo. In the wood itself. We burn her, Baker said finally. Sir, we can't let her drift into a port. She's a plague ship. We burn her. Send her to the bottom. The crew of the Marathon prepared to destroy the ghost ship Resolute. It went against every sailor's instinct. Ships were valuable. Cargo was valuable. Burning a perfectly good vessel was wasteful. Criminal even. But Captain Baker knew the danger. If the Resolute drifted into a busy shipping lane, another crew would board her. They'd contract whatever disease killed the original crew. The plague would spread to other ships, to ports, to entire cities. He couldn't let that happen. Gather all the lamp oil we can spare, Baker ordered. Tar, anything flammable. The men worked quickly. They filled barrels with oil and tar, loaded them into the boarding boat, rowed back to the death ship. This time they worked fast. No exploring, no examining bodies. They just poured oil across the deck, splashed it into the holds, soaked the sails and rigging. One sailor paused at a body. A young man, maybe 19. His skeleton still wore a silver locket around its neck bone. Leave it, Baker commanded. Touch nothing. They finished and returned to the Marathon. Baker himself held the torch. May God have mercy on their souls, he said. Then he threw the torch. The oil ignited instantly. Flames raced across the deck, climbed the masts, engulfed the sails. Within minutes, the Resolute was a floating inferno. The crew of the Marathon watched in silence. Black smoke rose into the clear sky. The fire roared. The ship's timbers cracked and groaned. It took 3 hours for the Resolute to sink. The flames consumed everything above the waterline. The hull filled with water, and finally she slipped beneath the waves. 29 souls went down with her. Log it, Baker told his first mate. February 11th, 1854. Encountered derelict vessel Resolute. Crew dead from disease. Ship destroyed to prevent contagion. But the story didn't end there. When the Marathon reached Boston 2 weeks later, Captain Baker reported the incident to the harbor authorities. He described the ship, the skeletons, the logbook entry, the disease. The authorities were skeptical. You destroyed a ship? The harbor master asked. A ship full of cargo? Without claiming salvage? It was a plague ship, Baker insisted. The entire crew was dead, but you don't know what killed them. Could have been scurvy, starvation, any number of natural causes. The captain's log said sickness. Everyone died within weeks of each other. That's plague. The harbor master frowned. The owners won't be happy. That cargo was insured. Now there's no proof it even existed. And that's when things got complicated. Within days, shipping companies demanded an investigation. The Resolute had been a real ship, registered in Baltimore, owned by the Harrison Trading Company. She'd left port in August 1853, bound for London with a cargo of tobacco and cotton. She never arrived. The company assumed she'd sunk in a storm. They'd already collected the insurance money. But now, 7 months later, a British captain claimed he found her drifting, full of dead men, and burned her. "We need proof," the insurance investigator said. "Where's the logbook? The ship's papers? Any physical evidence?" "I left them aboard," Baker admitted. "I didn't want to risk bringing disease back to my ship." How convenient. The investigator suspected fraud. Perhaps Baker had actually found the Resolute, looted her cargo, killed any survivors, and concocted the disease story to cover his tracks. Baker was arrested. The trial began in April 1854. Captain James Baker stood accused of piracy, murder, and insurance fraud. The prosecution painted him as a greedy criminal. He found a valuable ship. Instead of claiming legitimate salvage, he stole the cargo, murdered the crew, and burned the evidence. Baker's defense was simple. "I found a ship full of skeletons. I acted to protect public health. I have nothing to gain from this. I destroyed a valuable salvage opportunity." "Where's your proof?" the prosecutor demanded. At the bottom of the Atlantic, the trial dragged on for weeks. The court heard from Baker's crew. All supported his story. They'd seen the bodies, smelled the death, witnessed the burning. But the prosecution had a point. No physical evidence existed. Just the word of sailors who stood to share salvage. Money if their story was believed. Then something unexpected happened. A merchant captain named William Ross came forward. He'd been sailing the same route 2 months earlier, in December 1853. "I saw a ship drifting," Ross testified. "I approached but didn't board. Through my telescope, I saw bodies on the deck. I thought they were sleeping, but they didn't move. I sailed on." "Why didn't you investigate?" the judge asked. "I was alone. One ship, one crew. If it was plague, I couldn't risk it. I reported it when I reached port, but no one believed me." Ross's testimony corroborated Baker's story. The Resolute had been drifting for at least 2 months before Baker found her. The timeline matched. More witnesses came forward, other captains who'd heard rumors of a ghost ship in the North Atlantic, a ship full of dead men. Sailors refused to speak of it. It was bad luck. But everyone knew someone who'd seen it from a distance. The prosecution's case fell apart. There was no evidence of fraud, no evidence of murder. Just a captain who made a difficult decision to protect others. In June 1854, Captain James Baker was acquitted of all charges. But the mystery remained. What killed the crew of the Resolute? The ship's owners hired investigators. They traced the Resolute's journey, interviewed people in Baltimore who'd seen the ship before it sailed, talked to dock workers who'd loaded the cargo. They discovered something disturbing. Before leaving Baltimore, the Resolute had taken on supplies in Haiti, fresh water, food, and several barrels marked medicinal supplies. The crew had been in Haiti for 3 days. Several of them visited the town, drank in taverns, socialized with locals. And Haiti, in August 1853, was in the middle of a yellow fever outbreak. Yellow fever, a disease transmitted by mosquitoes. Symptoms include high fever, jaundice, bleeding, organ failure. In 1853, there was no cure, no treatment. Mortality rate was over 50%, and it spread fast in the confined spaces of a ship. The investigators concluded that someone on the Resolute contracted yellow fever in Haiti. By the time they were at sea, it was too late. The disease spread through the crew. One by one, they fell ill. Within weeks, everyone was dead. The last man alive, the captain, wrote his final log entry. Then he too succumbed. The ship, perfectly seaworthy, continued sailing. The wind pushed her northeast. The currents carried her. For 5 months she drifted, a floating tomb, until Captain Baker found her and sent her to the bottom. The story of the Resolute spread through maritime communities. Sailors told and retold it. Each telling added new details, new horrors. Some said the skeletons weren't lying down. They were standing, frozen in their final moments, reaching for help that never came. Others claimed the ship was cursed, that the disease wasn't yellow fever. It was something supernatural, a plague sent by God to punish sinners. A few insisted the ship hadn't burned, that she'd sunk, yes, but she still sailed beneath the waves. A ghost ship crewed by skeleton sailors, forever searching for a port that would never accept them. But beyond the legends, the Resolute raised serious questions. How many other ghost ships were drifting in the oceans? How many crews had died at sea, leaving their vessels to sail on alone? The answer was disturbing, more than anyone wanted to admit. The oceans in the 19th century were full of hazards. Disease was one of the biggest killers. Yellow fever, typhoid, cholera, scurvy. On long voyages with limited medical knowledge, entire crews could be wiped out. And when everyone died, the ship didn't stop. It just kept going. In 1840, the French ship Resolute was found drifting near the Bahamas. Sails set, cargo intact, no crew, not even bodies, just an empty ship sailing itself. In 1849, the Dutch vessel Germania was discovered in the Atlantic. The entire crew was dead, frozen in various positions. The ship's doctor lay with his medical instruments scattered around him. He'd been trying to help someone when he died. In 1855, just 1 year after the Resolute incident, the American clipper James B. Chester was found abandoned off the coast of Africa. The crew was missing, but the ship's boats were still aboard. They hadn't abandoned ship. They'd simply vanished. Maritime authorities began to realize the scope of the problem. Derelict ships were a navigation hazard. They drifted unpredictably, had no lights at night, could appear suddenly in shipping lanes. Worse, they tempted salvagers. Men would board unknown vessels, hoping for valuable cargo. And sometimes they'd contract whatever disease killed the original crew. International maritime law was updated. Any ship found with a dead crew was to be documented, then sunk. No boarding unless absolutely necessary. No salvage claims for plague ships. Captain Baker had been right to burn the Resolute. But he'd been punished for it, arrested, put on trial. His reputation damaged. In 1856, the British Admiralty officially commended Baker for his actions. They awarded him a medal for preventing the spread of disease and protecting public health through decisive action. It was small comfort. Baker never captained a merchant ship again. The shipping companies didn't trust him. Too controversial. Too willing to destroy property. He died in 1871, relatively unknown, but sailors remembered him. The captain who faced down a ghost ship, who made the hard choice, who burned the dead rather than profit from them. The Resolute herself became legend. Old sailors claimed to have seen her, still burning, still sailing, a phantom ship of flames on the horizon. Of course, that was impossible. She'd sunk in 1854, gone to the bottom. The fish had picked clean whatever bones remained. But legends don't care about facts. In the decades that followed, dozens of ships reported seeing a burning vessel in the North Atlantic, always in the same general area where Baker had scuttled the Resolute, always at dusk or dawn, always disappearing when approached. Maritime folklore called her the Eternal Fire, a ghost ship condemned to burn forever as punishment for carrying disease. A warning to other vessels. Turn back, don't approach. Death sails these waters. Was any of it true? Almost certainly not. Sailors are superstitious. They see what they expect to see. A trick of the light becomes a ghost ship. A distant storm looks like flames. The mind fills in the details. But the psychological impact was real. Crews became nervous sailing through that region. Captains altered their routes slightly. Shippers avoided scheduling voyages that would pass near where the Resolute went down. The Atlantic Ocean is vast. Millions of square miles. The odds of seeing anything specific are infinitesimal. But fear doesn't care about odds. And there's something primal about the idea of a plague ship, a vessel of death, contaminated, untouchable. It taps into deep human fears. No port within 1,000 miles, no help, no medicine. The disease spread in the confined spaces of a ship. Mosquitoes that had bitten infected crew members now bit healthy crew members. The cycle continued. Within 2 weeks, half the crew was sick. Navigation became impossible. Maintaining the ship became impossible. Men were too weak to work. Captain Harrison tried to maintain order, keep the ship sailing toward England. Hoped they'd reach port before everyone died. But hope wasn't enough. By late August, nearly everyone was dead or dying. The ship drifted. The sails, improperly trimmed, caught wind randomly. The rudder, unattended, swung freely. Early September. Maybe 5 men still alive. Too weak to sail, barely able to move. They knew they were dying. Knew there was no hope. Mid-September. Only Captain Harrison remained. Everyone else had succumbed. He was alone on a ship full of corpses, delirious with fever, bleeding internally. He forced himself to write one final log entry. The sickness has taken everyone. I'm the last. Can barely hold the pen. God have mercy on our souls. Then he died, slumped at his desk, the pen falling from his hand. The Resolute sailed on, a true ghost ship. No living soul aboard. Just 29 bodies slowly decomposing in the tropical Atlantic heat. Weeks passed. The bodies rotted. Seabirds landed on the deck, pecked at the flesh. Nature took its course. The ship drifted north and east, pushed by currents and wind, aimless but persistent. Months passed. The bodies became skeletons. The ship weathered storms, took on water but didn't sink. The cargo remained secured. The hull remained sound. Other ships saw her, gave her a wide berth, suspicious, superstitious, until February 1854. Captain James Baker and the Maritime. They boarded, found the horror, made the decision to burn her, and the Resolute went to the bottom, taking her dead with her. That's the most likely explanation. Yellow fever, bad luck, and the ocean's indifference to human suffering. But there are other possibilities. Some historians suggest cholera instead of yellow fever. Cholera was also common in Caribbean ports. It killed faster than yellow fever, could wipe out a crew in days rather than weeks. Others point to typhoid, or even food poisoning from contaminated supplies in Haiti. A few researchers have proposed mutiny. Perhaps the crew killed the officers, then turned on each other. The survivors eventually died from wounds or starvation. But this doesn't match the evidence. Baker reported no signs of violence. No weapons, no blood, just bodies that appeared to have died from illness. There's also the pirate theory. Caribbean pirates could have attacked, killed the crew, and looted some cargo. But why leave the ship intact? Why not burn it themselves? Pirates didn't leave evidence floating. The supernatural explanation persists in maritime folklore. A curse, a demon, the wrath of God. Something that killed the crew through means beyond human understanding. But there's no evidence of supernatural activity. Just disease, just death, just the ordinary horror of life at sea in the 19th century. The truth is probably mundane, tragic, but mundane. The Resolute encountered disease. The crew died. The ship drifted until someone found her and put her to rest. What makes the story remarkable isn't what happened. It's the image, the mental picture of a ship full of skeletons, still sailing, going nowhere, forever. It captures something fundamental about our fear of death and the sea. The ocean is vast, uncaring. It doesn't notice when we die. Life goes on. The waves keep moving. The wind keeps blowing. And our ships, our creations, our tools keep functioning even when we're gone. They don't need us. They'll sail on without us. That's what haunted the sailors who heard the story. Not ghosts, not curses, but the realization that we're not as important as we think. That nature will continue long after we're gone. The Resolute is one of hundreds of ships that have been found, abandoned or full of dead crews, throughout history. Each one has a story. Each one represents lives lost, families destroyed, dreams ended. In the age of modern navigation and communication, these incidents are rare. Ships report their positions constantly. Medical emergencies trigger immediate rescue responses. If a crew dies from disease, the world knows within hours. But in 1854, ships could disappear for months, years even. They'd just vanish into the ocean. Maybe they sank. Maybe they drifted. No one knew. The Resolute was found by chance. If Captain Baker had sailed a different route, she might have drifted for years more, eventually sinking or running aground on some deserted shore. How many other ships met similar fates and were never found? How many ghost ships sank with their stories untold? We'll never know. The ocean keeps its secrets. Today, if you search maritime records for the Resolute, you'll find scattered mentions, insurance documents, court records from Baker's trial, a few newspaper articles from 1854, but no complete account exists. No official investigation report. No detailed autopsy of the ship's condition. Just fragments, memories, stories passed down through generations of sailors. And maybe that's fitting. Ghost ships belong in fragments, in shadows, in the uncertain space between fact and legend. The Resolute is gone, but her story remains. A warning, a reminder, a ghost story told in harbors around the world. Don't board strange ships. Don't assume you understand what killed a crew. Don't think you're safe just because you're experienced. The ocean doesn't care about your experience. Disease doesn't care about your preparations. Death doesn't care about your plans. One day you're sailing toward fortune and glory. The next day you're a skeleton at the wheel, and your ship sails on without you. That's the lesson of the Resolute. That's why sailors still tell the story. That's why it haunts us. Because it could happen to any of us. Any ship, any crew, any voyage. The ocean is vast. The dangers are real. And sometimes, the only thing separating a successful journey from becoming a ghost ship legend is luck. Captain James Baker understood that. He'd seen enough of the sea to know respect it, to fear it, to take the hard actions necessary to protect others. He burned a valuable ship, destroyed potential profit, faced trial and public scrutiny. But he did the right thing. He prevented the Resolute from becoming a plague ship in a busy harbor, from killing another crew, from spreading disease to innocent people. He's remembered for that decision, not celebrated, not famous, but remembered by those who understand the sea. And the Resolute? She's remembered too. A cautionary tale, a ghost story, a reminder that the ocean claims us all eventually. Some go down fighting, some go down sailing, some go down long after they're already dead. If this story gave you chills, hit that subscribe button. There are more maritime mysteries waiting to be told, more ghost ships, more unexplained disappearances, more stories from the age when the ocean was truly dangerous. What do you think happened to the Resolute? Was it yellow fever? Something else? Let me know in the comments below. Next week, we're diving into an even stranger case, the Octavius, a ship found frozen in Arctic ice, with the captain still sitting at his desk, dead, frozen solid, his log open in front of him. The final entry? November 11th, 1762. The ship was found in 1775, 13 years later. How did that ship sail for 13 years? With a frozen dead crew? Through Arctic ice? You'll have to watch to find out. Until then, remember, the ocean is vast, the mysteries are endless, and some ships never really sink. They just keep sailing forever.